You want to know what ballet actually is? It is blood in a pink satin shoe. Smile on the face, broken bone in the foot. 12 hours of a body screaming, "Stop!" and a mouth that answers, "One more." I read a book by a Navy SEAL named Brent Gleeson. Combat in Iraq, Hell Week, the whole thing. He called it Embrace the Suck. And you might think, what on earth does a SEAL have to say to the rest of us? Plenty. Because Gleeson says the life you actually want is sitting on the other side of pain you don't want to feel. The only way across is straight through. That reminded me of a young woman I want to tell you about. Her name was Nadya Volkova. Nadya was 23, a dancer at an old theater in Saint Petersburg, the city of cobblestones and the grey Neva river running through the middle of it. She'd been dancing since she was 4, slept in her leotard some nights in the small flat she shared with her babushka, so she'd be ready for morning. She was in the corps de ballet, meaning in the back, row 3, row 4. The swans in the background, all moving as one so the audience could watch the swan in the front. And the swan in the front, for 6 seasons running, was a woman named Larisa Orlova. 28, tall, ice blonde, with the name of an old aristocratic family from Moscow. Dressing room by the window, director's ear. Name on every poster from the Neva to Nevsky Prospect. 6 seasons, never lost a lead.
Then one cold October morning, the kind of morning where the first snow had already dusted the rooftops along the canal, the artistic director tacked a piece of paper to the rehearsal room door. Auditions. Lead in Swan Lake. Open to the company. May the best swan win. Nadya stood in front of that paper for a full minute. She was not the obvious choice. She was not even the second obvious choice. But something in her chest said, "You can do this." So she signed her name. The audition was brutal. 3 days, 6 hours a day, 32 fouettes in a row. For those of you who don't speak ballet, that's 32 consecutive spins on the tip of one toe without moving off a dinner plate of space. Do it wrong, you fall. Do it right, you bleed. End of day 3, the director pinned the list up. Everybody crowded around. At the top, Nadya Volkova. Lead! Odette? Odile? Swan Lake! The room went silent. Larisa didn't even blink. She just smiled, very slightly, and walked out. Nadya cried in the bathroom for 10 minutes. Then she wiped her face and showed up Monday at 6 a.m. The show was in 6 weeks. 6 weeks to learn a role most ballerinas train 2 years for. She had no idea what she'd just walked into. Here is where the story takes a turn. Next day, Nadya opened her locker and reached for her pointe shoes. Put them on, got up, and pain, sharp, wrong pain, shot up her arch. Somebody had pulled the shank, the stiff spine of the shoe, loosened it so when she went up on pointe, her full body weight came down on the soft flesh of her toes. She danced the whole morning before she figured it out. By lunch, her right shoe was red on the inside. She didn't say a word. Bought new shoes on the walk home. 2 days later, her costume, taken in at the ribs, 2 full inches. Tight enough she couldn't draw a full breath in the 3rd act. Halfway through the run-through, she saw stars and stumbled. The whole corps saw it. Larisa, watching from the wings, slowly sipped from a glass of tea. Nadya still didn't say a word. Paid a seamstress out of her own pocket to let it out overnight. And then the rumors started. That Nadya had bribed her way into the role. That she was faking her injuries to steal sympathy. That she wouldn't last the run. By the end of week 2, half the corps wouldn't meet her eye in the hallway.
Now you listen to me.
because this is where most people break. End of week 2, Nadya sat on the edge of her bathtub at 11 o'clock at night, feet soaking in salt water, snow falling against the small window above her, and cried the kind of cry that has no sound. Her toenails were black. 2 had fallen off. She had a stress fracture in her left foot she hadn't told a doctor about, because a doctor would pull her from the show. Her ribs were bruised. She was utterly alone. She thought, I am done. I cannot do this for 4 more weeks. And right there is a moment Gleeson writes about in Embrace the Suck. He calls it the 40% rule. He learned it from a fellow SEAL named David Goggins. When your brain tells you you're finished, when every nerve is begging you to quit, you are only 40% done. 60% still in the tank. Your brain is a liar, Gleeson says, and its favorite lie is the word enough. Nadya didn't know the 40% rule. She'd never heard of Gleeson or Goggins, but at midnight on that bathtub edge, something inside her said, you are nowhere near 100. Get up. So she got up, taped her broken toes, slept 4 hours, and she was at the bar at 5:30 the next morning, before anyone else, doing the boring, painful, invisible work.
Because here is the other thing Gleeson teaches. Do something that sucks every single day. Not once a week, every day. Your comfort zone, he says, is like a muscle. Stretch it daily, or it shrinks around you. One day you wake up, and it's so small, it's a coffin. So Nadya made a ritual. Every morning before dawn, while the city was still dark and the Neva was frozen still, alone in the studio, she'd do the bar. Plié, tendu, dégagé. The little boring foundations a 4-year-old does, for an hour before anyone arrived. Every morning, her feet screamed. Every morning, she wanted to quit. Every morning, she didn't. But the sabotage didn't stop. Week 4, public dress rehearsal. Half the city in the audience. Donors, press, the ballet board, an old critic from Moscow. Nadya went up into her first arabesque, and her pointe shoe came undone. The ribbon had been cut. Not all the way, just enough. Halfway through the variation, the ribbon unraveled, the shoe came loose, and in front of 300 people, Nadya Volkova fell. She went down hard. Her knee cracked on the wood. A gasp went through the audience. For a second, she thought, this is it. I'll crawl into the wings. Nobody would blame me. But instead, she got up, stood on a bleeding knee, retied the ribbon with shaking hands, and finished the variation. Not well, but she finished it. The curtain closed. The corps stared. Larisa's face went very still. And Gleeson would have recognized exactly what just happened. He writes that failing isn't the opposite of trying. Failing is trying. The only real failure is walking off the floor. Everybody who keeps dancing after the fall, those are the winners. Every single one. Nadya got up. So, Nadya won that night, even though she looked like she lost. Now let me ask you something. I want you to sit with this one. What's the thing in your life right now that is asking you to quit? Not the thing that's easy to quit. The thing that matters. The thing you've bled a little bit for. The thing your brain is whispering enough about. Even though deep down you know you're nowhere near enough. What would it look like to show up tomorrow morning before anyone else and do the boring, painful thing one more time?
2 weeks later, opening night. Nadya stood in the wings. Her feet were wrapped. Her ribs still hurt. She had not slept. Larisa walked past her and said in Russian, so softly only Nadya could hear, "You don't belong out there." Nadya didn't answer. She just stepped onto the stage. And what happened over the next 2 hours, I cannot fully describe to you. She didn't dance perfectly. She wasn't flawless. But there was something in her the audience had never seen before. A kind of earned gravity. She had bled for every single step, and you could feel it. In Odette, she was soft and broken. In Odile, she was fury in a black tutu. When she finished the 32 fouettes, all 32 in one spot on a stress-fractured foot, the audience rose to their feet before she was even done. Standing ovation, 7 curtain calls, flowers piled up to her knees. And somewhere in the 5th balcony, a little girl of 6 or 7 was crying and clapping and pointing at the stage because she'd just seen, maybe for the first time in her life, what a grown woman looks like when she refuses to break. Gleeson writes one more thing that I want you to hear. He calls it, "Choose wisely what you suffer for." Because here is the truth. Suffering is not optional in this life. Not for anyone. You are going to suffer. The only question is what you are going to suffer for. Larisa Orlova suffered for status, to stay on top, to keep her name on the poster. And when a younger, hungrier dancer came along, all that suffering bought her exactly nothing. Nadya Volkova suffered for the dance itself, for the art, for the 6-year-old sitting in row 12 with her babushka. And that suffering, that chosen suffering, built her a life that could not be taken away by a cut ribbon or a whispered rumor in a hallway. That's the whole book right there. Pick your pain, because if you don't pick it, life will pick it for you. And the pain life hands you is almost always the worst deal. Nadya danced Odette 6 more seasons after that, still showed up before dawn, still bled in her shoes. Her comfort zone kept stretching, and one day she realized it wasn't a zone anymore. It was a continent. She became the artistic director of a small ballet school in the same old city by the Neva. Her first rule for her students, taped to the front door in her own handwriting: we do something that sucks every day. That's why we're here. Brent Gleeson wrote Embrace the Suck for anybody who has ever stood at the edge of the thing they wanted most and felt their legs go weak. He wrote it for the people sitting on the bathtub edge at midnight with broken toes. He wrote it for you. His message is simple. Don't pray for an easier life. Pray for the strength to walk through the one you've got. Because the life you actually want, it's on the other side of a stage you're afraid to step onto. If you have ever felt like Nadya, go pick up this book. Now, if this old man's story gave you something tonight, do me a kindness. Tap that subscribe button down there. Come back next week. I've got more stories where this one came from. And if you know somebody out there who is bleeding in their own pink satin shoes and wondering if they should quit, send this to them. Tell them 40%. I'll see you in the next one.